Welcome back. Today we sit down with Michael Sacca. He's the president of Crew. Crew helps companies find freelancers for their design and development projects. Want to build an app but don't know how much it's going to cost? Don't know where to go? Don't know where to find the right people? Crew can help. In today's episode, he's going to discuss why he considers himself the anti-productivity guy. I know you're probably thinking just like I was, what in the world is a guy in the position of being president of a company considering himself the anti-productivity guy? Stay tuned.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Michael Sacca is president of Crew and host of Rocketship.fm. He started his career by moving to LA pursuing music. After 3 years of waiting tables and little success, he decided to teach himself how to code. He used his coding skills to launch Tiny Factory, a web development agency that won clients such as General Electric and Kobe Bryant. Crew is a 3-year-old company and has raised over $11 million in funding. They help companies source freelancers for design and development projects. At the time of this recording, they've done over $30 million in projects. If you're not getting the results you need, want, and desire, chances are you don't have enough accountability. You don't have someone holding your feet to the fire. When you're accountable, you get stuff done. Things happen. You've joined accountability groups in the past. That works for a little bit, but then nobody wants to be the bad guy. Well, I've got good news for you. If you're serious about taking your game to the next level and really want true accountability, head on over to thorconklin.com, and under services, you're going to see a section on real accountability. If you have thin skin or just want to talk about success, don't sign up. This program is not right for you. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I know the audience is going to get so much out of today's episode. Why don't you start us off with your podcast? Absolutely love it. Rocketship.fm. Why'd you start it?
To learn. I mean, I had just started kind of my first startup inside of an agency that I ran. And we took like 6 months bringing the product to market. And then I realized we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And so we started the podcast as a way to get on the radar and also get advice from people that we wanted to be talking to. And so we really used it as kind of a learning experience for ourselves, and then we were able to share it with others, and then it just kept on growing. I think a lot of podcasters have kind of the same experience, but that was 3 years ago, and it was pretty crucial to even my development as an entrepreneur.
You know, I'm in my 8th month, I think, right now of podcasting. What advice do you have for a newbie like me?
I think consistency and putting the systems in place so that you can keep going. That was something that we had to learn really early on. Was we wanted to do 2 to 3 episodes a week, but then life happens and you can't always edit it in time. You know, so we had to really break it down and systematize it so that we could have a consistent schedule, especially because we were doing it on the side while we were working, other jobs that took full time, and also kind of being a little bit forgiving with ourselves. If we missed an episode or two, it wasn't a big deal, right? If we put one out on Tuesday and we didn't have one for Thursday, we would just do it on Tuesday again, and not getting so consumed with our success on that, but making sure that we were getting the right people and that the conversations were adding value back to the community.
You know, so many people are starting podcasts nowadays. What are some of the systems that you put in place to make it easier?
So for myself, I do a lot of our editing now that we do full shows. So we do more like editorial shows where we break down 4 or 5 interviews that we do on a topic and then build out an episode. And so I have to set aside the time to do that. And so for me, it's every Saturday morning and Monday night, I am going to be in front of the computer editing this podcast. And if I don't do that and I prioritize other things, then I will fall behind. And so we used to use an editor, which was great for a while until the show became a little bit more complicated to put together and needed a storyline for each episode. But having an editor was great, and just having the times when we would record be consistent. So we used to only record interviews on Fridays. And so we would just open up 4 or 5 slots on a Friday. We knew that time was dedicated to the podcast. And then I knew that I could get that audio to the editor in time and we'd be fine for the next week. So those were some of the systems that we put in place. We also put in systems for sponsors, how to reach out to sponsors, when to reach out to sponsors, and then how to keep them in the loop. And that saved us a lot of time on the sales side so that we could make a little bit of money for the podcast, but it didn't consume our time chasing down hundreds and hundreds of sponsors so that we could always have someone lined up.
So basic block and tackling, putting it on your calendar, keeping those commitments, and just doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a podcast at the end of the day, right? So it's not exactly. It's not the most complicated task. But what I have seen is that people they kind of hit it hard and they go fast. They're doing 3 episodes a week, but eventually you burn out, right? So you have to find the balance, the system helps you get through the hard times. Whereas if you're just kind of running on pure ambition, eventually you're going to fade.
Yeah. We do a show a day, and Wednesdays is I'll do my own episodes on Wednesday. I'll do the editing on Wednesday. And then what I did is I moved all the interviews to the afternoons on the other days. And I used to spread them out all the time. And it was like it never went away. It was like it was all consuming. And it was like, wait a second, I got to be able to manage this process better. Otherwise, it's just going to drive me nuts.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you.
Been there, done that, right?
Yeah. And I think for us, we've also evolved the show that we've done over the 3 years, and that's helped keep it fresh and keep us excited about what we're doing. So I think we always have to stay open, keep an open mind, and not always prioritize like the sponsorships and the money, but also prioritize what we want to be doing and the type of content we want to be creating.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about the listeners and the content and the value that they're getting.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something because this show's all about productivity, execution, and I know you're kind of the anti-productivity guy. And when I first saw that, I was like, what? Wait a second. What do you mean anti-productivity? Talk a little bit about to-do list and tracking productivity. You don't track the productivity. Is that correct?
No, I don't.
All right, well, tell us.
Not to be unproductive, but I come from a creative background, and I feel like we oftentimes kind of turn ourselves into robots a bit, and we lose a bit of the human in our work. And so especially when I'm doing creative work, I try to allow my body to prioritize what I should be working on. And that's not always something I can do at the very beginning of the day. And so if I feel myself kind of getting, groggy or tired, then I will change tasks. I'll write some emails. I'll do some simple things. If I have that burst of creative energy, I follow it. And because if I don't take advantage of that creative time, I don't know when it's going to come back again. And I do my best work when I am creatively, inspired. And especially, I've got 2 kids. I do the podcast, which, I have to block out time to get done. And so my work with crew during the day, I try to allow myself a little bit of freedom so that I can pursue other ideas without necessarily always sticking to a task list. I also think that things that are a priority tend to stay a priority. So either they're on my mind or they keep popping up. But things that aren't quite as important but might make it onto a to-do list, oftentimes those things can fade away and they never affect your bottom line. And so I try to organically allow that to happen, where if something isn't bothering me personally, or it's not something that keeps popping up, then maybe now's not the right time to fix it. Maybe there's something more important I could be doing. Yeah,
I keep a S&M file in Evernote, and that's someday and maybe. And I just throw stuff in there, and what you find is a lot of times you don't even, it's not even any important anymore. I'll even take it out of that list and just delete it because, but what, at some point it was like, yeah, this is pretty important. Then it was like, I don't know. I don't want to forget about it. So I'll just throw it in there. But a lot of times it just drops off. And it's like that, past that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times, like if you have an idea that you just can't let go or something that you need to do that just won't leave you alone, then, you could wait 6 months, you could wait a year, it'll still be there. Maybe the opportunity won't, but the idea, you can marinate it. And so I let those things kind of marinate in my head. And by the time I get around to working on a lot of them, I've worked out a lot of the kinks, or at least the initial work in my head already, and it can just kind of flow. And so I try to be a little bit more organic approach to productivity to allow for those human elements to exist. And I don't feel like I'm waking up every morning and working through a task list and then going home.
Yeah. We're called human beings, not human doers.
Yes.
For a reason. Take us through some of the lessons and aha moments or things that you found in interviewing people on the podcast. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That's inspiring.
So the best part, the most common thread I've seen is that nobody really knows what they're doing. And a lot of people, like, an idea is just really good and you just kind of hold on, right? Like we talked to Ryan Singer, and this is how he described Basecamp. Basecamp's a product that many of us may use and most of us have probably heard of. But he was describing it as just not messing it up. And they didn't know why it was necessarily so popular, why it took off, why people are so attracted to the brand and to the product itself. But they know that as they're working on it, they just don't want to mess that up. And so it was the right idea at the right time. And I think a lot of there's a lot of preparation, there's a lot of planning that go into it, but sometimes there's just that little bit of luck that takes it over the edge. And it's okay to end up in that situation. You see it happen a lot where people don't have the knowledge of everything that they're doing, and they don't even know why it's working, but they're getting in there every day and they're kind of making it happen. And I always found that kind of inspiring, that the people that I looked up to didn't have all the answers, that they maybe had a couple of them, but they didn't have it all figured out, and yet they were still succeeding. And to me, that was a very comforting revelation.
Yeah, I always say that the map to success looks like a 5-year-old scribbled it on a piece of paper with a crayon.
You can't plan that.
You can't plan that. It's like, it's crazy. I mean, I literally just did a podcast the other day. I was like, it's not even undulating, kind of roller coaster. I mean, it's like it goes left, it goes right, the bottom falls out, and then it goes straight up. It's like, what's going on here? And what worked yesterday sometimes doesn't work tomorrow. So you just constantly have to be reinventing yourself and resilient.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and you get lucky sometimes and you hit the right thing. And I think if you try it for long enough, you do eventually figure things out. And there are things that work. But along the way, there really is no clear path for every idea on how it will succeed in the market right now.
Yeah. And some of the things that you think are going to succeed don't. And then the other idea is that it's like, this will never work. And it's like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was listening to a Fortune 500 CEO the other day, and he was explaining that they put something on their menu and they're like, no one's going to buy this, but we just want to try something new because we need, every month or 2 months they come out with a new concept. It's their best seller.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. I mean, you never know.
And, sometimes you hear that story and hindsight's 20/20 and we could take credit for it. But oftentimes the story goes a lot more like that. I tried it, it worked, and I didn't think it necessarily would, but it did, and we're going to run with it.
Yeah. And just be smart about it. Make sure that you're limiting your downside and that you're not betting the organization on it. So Talk a little bit about taking over as president of Crew.
Yeah, that was interesting. So we ended up building two businesses. Unsplash, which was a side project, literally to promote Crew in the early days. So Unsplash is a free stock photography site. So you can go there, you can download all the images. They're all Creative Commons. Photographers upload them, and now we have hundreds of millions of photos downloaded each month.
Unbelievable site.
Right.
Now, I got to ask a
growing.
question here.
Yeah.
How do you make money on Unsplash? Right?
We don't.
Okay.
Now.
All right. The entrepreneurs, we're going to put our hats on. It's like, how do you make money?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you look at marketplaces at scale, right, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think Unsplash is one of those, like we saw probably 5 years ago, where a lot of people were trying just to let me get a social network that hits scale and then I'll make $1 billion, right? And we saw our Instagrams, we had our Twitters. And I think Unsplash is really the business model falls in there. So depending on where it lands and kind of where it plateaus depends on what business model you put behind it. And our board and our team are willing to kind of take that risk to get there, which is really exciting. It's an amazing opportunity to try to build something at a scale way bigger than we ever imagined.
Well, it's an incredible site. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I use the site all the time, so it's awesome.
Yeah. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. So Unsplash has been growing still 30% month over month. And we saw that it needed a dedicated CEO. And Mikkel, who's the founding CEO of Crew, had really been focusing on both. And he had split his time. And it was just time to then let's just put all of our mental energy into Unsplash. And so Mikkel and Steph, who was Crew's COO, they both went over to Unsplash to help that continue to grow. And I was doing our partnerships and sales, which had been incredibly successful. We with a 2-person team, we brought in 40% of our revenue Q2 and Q3 last year, just through partnerships and sales. And so I stepped up into the president's role to try to bring some of those lessons and learning to the entire organization.
What's been the most difficult part of taking over?
We're a distributed team, and I struggle with large distributed meetings. And so we try to do like stand-ups, and I'm used to having kind of everyone in a room and being able to kind of engage in interactions that way, and also read the room, read people's body language. And with a distributed team on video chat, I do find it hard. I find it hard to kind of get the same level of excitement and inspiration going. And that's really on me to figure out, but it's definitely a new challenge for me.
Have you made any tweaks in that area so far that have kind of helped make it a little bit better?
Yeah, so one thing that we wanted to do was kind of break the ice. And so we do bi-weekly meetings now with the whole team. And each day someone is assigned to kind of take control and present what they've been working on. And so it gives everyone on the team the forum and the mic to then share what they're working on, which eventually does start to break down some of the, I guess, fear around public speaking. And then when I'm presenting, people can now start to challenge and speak up. And that's really what we want, is we want to get those ideas flowing. And if people don't feel comfortable, then they're not going to share. And so it's been, a couple months now, but we are starting to see that the team is communicating more and is giving more like honest feedback, which is really something that I look for.
Do you ask many questions during the meetings?
Yeah, but I think it's hard if you're not very direct, right? Yeah. So like the questions that don't work are, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. No,
I'm thinking no.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, every meeting there's going to be a question that I throw out there. I don't know which one I'm going to pick on, or maybe not pick on. Maybe it's not a good word, but who I'm going to choose. And then everyone's like sitting on their edge of a chair going, okay, I've got to pay attention because he might call on me.
That's a good technique. I mean, we've done it a couple times where you can kind of throw it over to one of the leads on the team and say, what do you think of this? Or, how are you guys addressing this problem? So those have worked, but I haven't made it a regular enough occurrence where people are nervous that they're going to be the one.
Exactly. Now I'm going to pay attention.
Right. It might work.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day. That concludes part 1 of our interview with Michael Sacca. Please stay tuned later this week for part 2.